improve the reading, fill in the blanks, and the reading and writing, fill in the blanks activity, there were quite a lot of questions related to reading skills. So the first one, how can I help my students improve in these question types? Anyone?
Yeah, I can take this, Bartek, thanks. Yeah, so reading, writing, fill in the blanks, and reading, fill in the blanks. So I love fill in the blanks as a question, just because when it comes to the reading section, fill in the blanks across those two questions makes up 9 questions of the 13. When it comes to supporting your students in terms of what they can do and what you need to teach them, you can focus on a few things here. So for reading, writing, fill in the blanks, you need to really teach them collocations, so words that go together. And you should be helping them every single lesson to learn new collocations and to review collocations. Because if you think about reading, writing, fill in the blanks, you're going to have a drop down, you're going to click, and then you have some choices of what could be there. The choices are going to be quite similar, and quite often it's about the words that go together. So if we look at an example of something like the word effort, you'd have to think about what collocates with the word effort. It could be a huge effort or a colossal effort. Whereas if there's a choice which says confusing effort, that doesn't really go together. It doesn't really work. So teach your students collocations. That will help them with their reading. Teach them phrasal verbs. So things like break up, split up. These phrasal verbs will help them with their reading too. And the final tip I've got for reading, writing, fill in the blanks is also this concept which we call connotation. So connotation is where a word has a positive meaning, a negative meaning, or it's neutral. So for example, if you've got a student, one of your students who is reading, writing, fill in the blanks, and it's all about the environment, and it's talking about how we can save the environment. If there's a blank at the end, which says we need to focus and we must blah, 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 the environment, it's unlikely to be a negative word like destroy or ruin. It's more likely to be something contextually. So I think for reading, writing from the blanks, it's sort of these 3 things would really help. So collocations, phrasal verbs, connotation are just some of the tips. For reading, fill in the blanks, grammar comes into play there, because with that, you're dragging options into different boxes, and you're going to have different words, and they're going to be different parts of speech. So you might have adjectives, you might have verbs, you might have nouns, and a student's knowledge of grammar can really help them. So when they're reading and they're reading the gap, if they can identify the parts of speech that goes into that gap, for example, if we've got a sentence like you are encouraged to blah, 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 your ideas, they should know that that gap is a verb. And then they can say, well, this word isn't a verb, this word isn't a verb, so it must be one of these.
Mm-hmm.
But Bartek, I'll stop there as sort of some first suggestions.
So basically, do I get right that when you prepare effectively for all the question types, there's a knowledge of grammar and vocabulary that you should master in the preparation period? It's not like you should put greater stress on one or the other, because sooner or later, those 2 elements, like a piece of big cake, will need to be used in practice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think why we're focusing on grammar and vocabulary is they're really important for reading skills. All the techniques and tips around reading are important, like skimming and scanning and reading for speed and reading for gist. But again, it's the knowledge of vocabulary and grammar which helps, especially because these are very detailed reading questions where they have to find that gap.
Okay. Anything else to add? Or if not, I can move to the second one. And this is I guess this is one of the most popular questions that has been going on forever and ever. And from time to time, we try our best to answer this question, and it comes back again. So the question, like, is it good to use templates for speaking and writing? Yeah. So it's like, as long as I can remember, it's been going on. So if we could shed some light, and I can add by the end on this one.
I'll take that, Bartek. But first, I just want to applaud Julian for his, sharp sort of memory of everything that's going on in these item types, and absolutely agree with everything that he said and advised. So, is it useful to use templates? Is it good to use templates? The short answer is no. It's not good to use templates.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It's not good to use templates. It's neither fair nor is it going to be useful for you, or it will not benefit you.
But it's so easy, Kasia. It's so easy.
It is easy and it's tempting. I know. Of course, when we're not confident in our skills, or when we are presented with a task that surprises us, and it is tempting to use sort of support, but no, it's not useful to use templates. Let's be really clear about that. And maybe it will be useful if we explain what templates are, because often we have a question from teachers and from test takers asking, well, what is the difference between reproducing a longer text and learning words and phrases and also reproducing that in the text, and there is a difference. There is a difference between word learn and memorize. And I'm not saying that memorizing often always means not understanding. But learning a word, learning words and phrases is a part of learning a language. These are your building blocks for your communicative skills. And we all learn words and phrases in various languages, not just in English, and they then sort of show our proficiency, and we use them to communicate our ideas. We use them to we call them discourse markers, right? So I'm not gonna, speaking to you here, I'm not gonna invent words. I'm gonna probably use the same words like you using, Bartek and Julian, and that's not a template. These are the building blocks that we all learn in the language. And we then use them to share our ideas, to structure our response so that it has the order that we want it to have, to contrast our ideas. Whether a template is a memorized script, it's been prescribed, written prior to the test, and typically test takers source it from the internet, or maybe they are provided with a template by a prep instructor, and they memorize it and then they use it in the test before they even they learn it before or memorize it before they even see the questions. And when you go to PT Academic test, you are going to be presented with a test form unique to you. So every test taker has a unique test created for them. So we use the sort of linear on the fly testing. So you're not going to have the same questions that someone else had. You don't know what questions you're going to be presented. So you're sort of assuming that what you memorized is going to address the prompt that you see on the screen. And trust me, it's really likely that it's not going to do it. First of all, you might be jeopardizing your chances here by scoring, getting good score and providing sort of in your own words good answer, because how likely is it that what you've memorized is going to address the exact points in the prompt that you presented? So that's one thing that you are just really risking not addressing. It's much better to make some mistakes or not address all the points, but do it in your own words. You're probably going to score much higher than if you use a template. And then the second aspect of this is, and I would refer you to our official document, the score guide. By using a template, you might not meet the requirements of the tasks. And at the end of the score guide, you have scoring rubrics, which I really recommend you familiarize yourself with. And when you check content score of 0, it will say that any responses which use significant amount of memorized and pre-prepared material, they will score 0. So you are automatically, by memorizing and using a template, you are making a decision to take away valuable scores and that you might gain by using your own words. We have automated template detection systems in the test that will discover, will will find out that you've used a template and you might be losing your score. So that I would say no. I don't know.
It sounds tempting to use templates, but there is a risk of scoring 0. And as you mentioned, it's better to put it in my own words, my own writing, and be as authentic as possible and reply to the questions prompt and getting some points instead of getting 0, just because of the fact that I decided to install a fixed text in my head and just rephrase it and say it again. Exactly. Anything to add here, Neil or Julian?
Just what you're saying there, yeah. So if it's a totally off-topic template, no matter how well written it is, as far as like the grammatical structures used in the range of vocabulary, if it isn't on the topic of the question, the template's going to automatically fail. You're not going to get some of the points for these memorized grammatical structures if they're not relevant to what you're being asked to actually write about. So the time that's spent trying to memorize 50 or 60 different templates, I think probably just better time spent learning English.
It's not an acting class when you have to recite a poem. There's difference there. Okay, great, worth knowing. So if you're listening to us and if you're teaching and you've got the message, so try to transfer this message and share this message with the students. And rather, I remember I had a conversation with fellow teachers, and I was like, what is there any reason that you can think that they would be memorizing? And those teachers told me, like, the simple reason: there was a mistake in the preparation period. They are not, they don't have enough language skills, and someone is basically being unfair with them instead of being honest that, hey, you need to develop your language skills in this amount of time because this is the score that you want to get. With this language level, you are not getting there. So let's work together. But sometimes they say, like, okay, here it is to memorize. It will save a day. And as we've just heard, it won't. So it's better to spend more time in preparation period and try to produce the authentic text yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think a lot of students, when they're approaching this test, they're cramming for it at the last minute. So they're trying to apply, especially for PT Academic, where it's a high stakes test for a visa application. They're doing all their regular university, exams, and then it's like, now I've got 2 weeks to prep for this visa application. I'll do and you're not going to learn English in 2 weeks. So it's focused on like trying to pass a driver's license test. It's like, how much can I put in my head just to get across the line? And that's often the test centers are kind of just maybe, or the training centers are maybe kind of feeding into that. They're doing very short courses where it's not really realistic that somebody who's at a A2 level is going to get to a B2 level, which they need for a visa in that period. It's more about, they should have more realistic expectations and maybe begin preparing much further in advance.
Yeah, I'm going to underscore what you just said, like, be very realistic about the language progression. If you're a test taker, and if you're a teacher, okay, learn how long it takes to develop a language. And this is the path to success. Okay, so looking at our speed, I think that we should spend 3 hours for the next Q&A, but let's try to do our best. The next question. So that's an interesting one. Like, between speaking in a fast speed in certain parts of read aloud and speaking in not so fast, but consistent speed, which would enable students to have higher scores?
I can also take that one, and maybe if I don't cover all of it, then others can help. You should neither speak fast nor slow. It should be a natural speed.
Why is it so? If I'm speaking fast, it's not good?
We speak fast in Poland, don't we? In Polish, we speak really, really fast. I think, it doesn't matter how proficient you are. If you speak too fast, it will be difficult to understand you. So, but I will maybe try to explain where this belief that speaking fast will make you score higher comes from, or I'll try to guess. But for those who maybe are new to the test, read aloud. I mean, it applies to any speaking, right? You shouldn't speak too fast or too slow in any speaking item. But since this question was about read aloud is a task where you are presented with a short text, I think 40 to 50 to 60 words, and you are instructed to read it aloud. So you are being scored here on sort of 3 aspects. You're being scored on content, on, you know, how faithfully are you reading the text, so it's accuracy, and you're being scored on fluency and pronunciation. So we call questions like read aloud integrated skills questions, because score that you get on that item will contribute to more than just one skill. So your score on read aloud will contribute to your speaking score and to your reading score. And this is because there is a strong link between your oral communication, so your manner of speaking, like fluency and pronunciation, and your reading comprehension. So we will try to measure your reading comprehension through measuring your oral communication. And the important thing to remember here is that don't focus just on the speed, because there is so much more, so many other micro traits, micro skills within that item that you need to be balancing out. And again, I would strongly recommend that you open the score guide, our official document. And again, the scoring rubrics, I think they're towards the end again. They will tell you, you know, the whole scale and the scoring rubric for content, for fluency and pronunciation. Because in read aloud, your pronunciation is not just one thing. It's built with sort of based on different micro skills. So, you know, we will score your phonemes, your consonants, your vowels. You know, we will be looking at, you know, connected speech, so deletions and assimilations, and, you know, where you put stress in your words, in your syllables, and in at the level, at the sentence level. So there's a lot there. Similarly, there is fluency. So we will be looking at the rhythm of your speech. Is it not, you know, it shouldn't be sort of staccato, it shouldn't be monotone as well. We will be looking at tempo, and we will be looking at pausing and hesitations. And again, research shows that there is a link between where you place your pause, how long that pause is, and how often you're pausing in your speech, and your reading, excuse me, and your reading comprehension. So there is a link between that, but not all pausing is bad. You know, when you use pausing, you're kind of creating a meaning. So it's really the balance, and you should be looking at it sort of all together. And I will try to, I saw a question in the Q&A already there. It disappeared. Maybe it's just because somebody will be answering that. But someone asked about the importance of intonation and stress in speaking, and I think that really covers that. It is really important. It is one of those micro skills, and remember that they are not very easily sort of interpretable, and not always under our conscious control. They require a lot of practice, so you just need to balance it all out. And again, I couldn't recommend the score guide more and the scoring rubrics to help you do that. And I'll hand it over to Julian.
Yeah, I can see that Julian is like a student. I want to say something. Finally.
I put my hand up. I just wanted to say, I think Kasia covered everything I wanted to say anyway, but I think the main thing is that I think we get lots of questions about speed. And I think even though speed is important, like Kasia said, what Kasia's identified is there's so many other things for fluency. So it's supporting your students with all those other things. And in the score guide, which Kasia's talked about, it is about, we call it phrasing. I call it chunking. But when a student is saying something and then they're pausing, and then they're saying another chunk, and then they're pausing, saying something else. So where are these pauses happening? But yeah, I think Kasia covered everything, to be honest.
Okay, and just bringing it down to earth when you do practice for students. Just put them in, let them exposed to reading aloud. So they need to hear themselves. Because when you read it silently, you are usually way smoother, okay, because there is no element of producing the speech sounds. So it's not like I'm going to be practicing silently in my head. You need to actually say things. It would be good to record yourself in the practice, or as a classroom practice, you can share the recording with your fellow students and let them let them evaluate you on your performance. So anything, but you need to start putting those elements in, like, let's say, daily practice. When, for example, you are going into, as Neil said, cramming the last two days. Oh my God, there is an exam, so I need to prepare. So at least give yourself a chance of reading aloud.
Yeah, and I think for read aloud, what you can do with your students is you have the read aloud in front of them, and you can highlight where the pauses should be. Right. So normally we draw lines. So we draw one line like this to show a short pause. We draw 2 lines like that to show a longer pause. And then you can just help them practice. And if they're pausing loads in a sentence, before that pause, you know that they're having slight fluency challenges.
Okay, thanks a lot. So there's another interesting question when it comes to the preparation period. Is like, I'm always concerned about how to start with the session every day, because practicing the same things every day makes lesson boring. There are many items to cover, which is not possible in a day. So how can we help students? And I understand is like when they come for the question type practice only, and they just do the question types on and on again, it sounds boring. Anything that we might suggest here, because maybe this teacher is starting its way, or maybe is looking for an inspiration. Anything, so not to make at least the beginning of a lesson as boring, rather more interesting.
Yeah, this so I'm not teaching anymore, Bartek, but this takes me back to my many years teaching.
The beauty.
Yeah, so you're right. It can, I think the beginning of the lesson can be quite samey. I would say that we need to be careful that we're not packing in too much.